My name is Louard Crumbaugh, and my wife insists that I say I'm Louard Crumbaugh Jr. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and went to college in Kentucky, which is now the Kentucky State University. After college, I joined the Navy, and from Vallejo, California, they sent me to Idaho Falls, Idaho. Before I became a Baha'i, I was born and raised in a Christian family. I started off as a good Christian, turned into a good atheist. Now I'm finding the answers in the teachings of Baha'u'llah. I came to Idaho the first time in 1964, and then after the Navy sent me to work on a nuclear submarine, I came back to Idaho in 1968 to work at the Idaho National Engineering Laboratory as a reactor operator and to teach other sailors how to operate a nuclear reactor. I enrolled as a Bahai in 1969. After I got out of the Navy, my wife and I lived in Idaho Falls, where she became a teacher, and I went to work as a civilian at one of the reactor plants. And we left Idaho Falls in '92 and moved to Haifa, Israel, and worked at the World Center for approximately 3 years. My family and his son were living on the west side of the state of Idaho in Nampa, Idaho. And he said, "Dad, when you and Mom come back to the United States, come live with us until you find out where you're going to go, if you're going to go back to working on reactors or what you're going to do." The first Baha'i activity was getting put on the Nampa Spiritual Assembly. But we had children's classes established here in Nampa. Even before my wife and I arrived, there was a very strong Baha'i community here. So we were just a part of that community. In the Nampa area, I can't remember how many we had. We had between 9 and 19 Baha'is in Nampa. We've made many friends living here, and we've introduced the faith to many people, and the reaction has always been, "Oh, that's nice," but they have not truly investigated. I think it's the same type of reaction the first time I heard about the faith. I didn't investigate, but the seed was planted. And when you plant a seed, you never know when it's going to germinate and become the plant that the seed will come into. The biggest obstacle that my wife and I had living in Idaho is not only being a member of a minority religion, but being a member of a minority race. So this has been a teaching thing for us. Or to have a little kid come up to you and to touch your skin and look and see if it rubs off. That's an experience that someone that's not a minority could not understand. I remember at work one time, I'm always trying to stimulate people about Baha'i. So at work, in the lunchroom, there was a discussion going on about the world situation and what Christians should be doing to help straighten the world situation. So naturally, I interjected into this conversation. I said, "Well, you Christians take care of that. You can leave me out because I'm a Baha'i, so you have to fix it for yourselves." And one of the people there that I had talked about the faith and had shared the faith with him knew that I was a Baha'i. And he says, "Oh no, Crumbaugh." He says, "This goes double for you because you are Baha'i, and Baha'is are super Christians." So that I thought was a funny one, that this person that I had introduced the faith to him, and he didn't become a Baha'i, but he looked at Baha'is as being super Christians. That was that was unique. So it showed me that the message of Baha'u'llah got through to him, although he did not enroll. He became more involved with his own church, but he knew about Baha'u'llah, and he knew what the teachings of the faith stood for and what it meant for mankind, really. I remember this one incident where a Baha'i that was in the military, a soldier, got isolated from his company and was sitting on a hilltop in Vietnam praying, had his prayer book, praying that that he would make it to the Bahai kingdom in one piece, because he knew that the communists were going to capture him and or kill him. So he was saying his prayers, and while he was praying, he heard the sound of a helicopter. And so when he looked, he recognized that this sound was an American helicopter. And so he stood up and he saw the helicopter, and he waved and waved, and the helicopter turned and came toward him and finally picked him up. And it was a helicopter that were collecting wounded. It was a medical helicopter, and they were collecting wounded soldiers. And so they landed, they picked him up, and they asked him if he had everything he needed, if he had any supplies that he needed to bring along. And he says, no, he says, I have everything I need, my prayer book. And they looked at him and said, your prayer book? He says, yeah. He says, I'm a Baha'i. And everybody in that helicopter looked at him and says, Allah Ha. The whole helicopter crew were Baha'is. That Baha'u'llah is a spiritual Rosetta Stone. We know that the Rosetta Stone was a way of bringing to civilization an answer to the ancient hieroglyphics from Egypt. For hundreds of years, we looked at the hieroglyphics and wondered what they were saying. What were the Egyptians telling us? And it wasn't until they discovered the Rosetta Stone that we were able to look at the hieroglyphics and understand what they meant. When they found the Rosetta Stone, it had Egyptian hieroglyphics, and underneath each of the hieroglyphics were two other forms of writing. There were a Greek printing, and there was a Greek writing. And they realized the way it was arranged that each one was saying the same thing. And so they realized that this Greek writing was mirroring what the hieroglyphics were saying. Since they understood the Greek writing, now they were able to understand the Egyptian hieroglyphics. Baha'u'llah does this for us with all the spiritual teachings that we've had from the previous manifestations. And by manifestations, I'm talking about the message that Moses brought mankind, the message that Jesus Christ brought mankind, that Muhammad brought mankind. Now we have another manifestation, Baha'u'llah. And through his revelation, we're able to look at the previous information that we have from the earlier manifestations and understand their message. And the more I shared it with other people, the more they encouraged me to write more. And I ended up writing a book. And so I made a book. Well, I wrote a book, which I had published in 2004, yeah, which came out in 2006. And the book is an autobiography of my life and how I found the Baha'i faith.